Welcome back to Mean Streets, the podcast where we investigate the best, worst, and forgotten movies of film noir and more. I am Luke Deckard.
And I'm Matthew Booth.
And we are your cinematic sleuths. Now it's time to crack another case. All right, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Mean Streets Debriefed. Matt can't join us tonight, unfortunately. There's been a family emergency, so he's had to go and deal with some personal issues. But stepping in for Matt is friend and author James Benmore. James is the author of Ask for Mercy, a contemporary thriller novel, and also the Artful Dodger series, The Dodger Papers. Well worth checking out. So James, thanks for joining me on this debriefed on Knives Out Wake Up Dead Man, or Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery, however you want to phrase it.
Yeah, my word, thank you so much. That's great. Yeah, I'm so delighted to be here. I listen to your podcast, you and Matt talking every week, so it's a thrill to be on the show.
Yeah,
talking about
regular listener.
Yeah, I'm a regular listener, yeah. I said talking about this particular movie, Wake Up Dead Man especially, yes. It's going to be fun.
I knew if there was one person to bring on for a Knives Out discussion, it would be you.
Oh, really?
Yes. If there was, it would be you. You and I and Matt and another author, Vaseem Khan, on my old podcast, The Luke Deckard Show, did a Glass Onion review, which was, it was a bit tight because it was basically 3 against 1.
Yeah. So I was the Glass Onion defender. I was the Benoit Blanc defender, and you guys all, to varying degrees, hated it. Like I think Vaseem hated it the most. You were close second. I think Matthew was a bit more, give and take. But I was the one that was sticking up for it. And looking back on that podcast, I think I did stick up for it a bit too much, purely because it was getting such a kick in from the rest of you. I felt the need to defend, a movie that I very much enjoyed. But I actually listened back to that podcast recently when you invited me on this one to remind myself what I thought, because I couldn't remember. And I think I was very generous about it. I think my main thing was I really enjoyed it. I enjoy all 3 of the Benoit Blanc movies. I think it's a series I enjoy, while still acknowledging that almost everything you 3 said about it that was negative is still basically right. It was sort of like, I kind of think you're right about what you're saying. I think it just sort of bothered me less. But yeah, I did. I was the Glass Onion defender. I haven't really watched Glass Onion again since, but I've listened to our podcast about Glass Onion again since, and that was probably more fun. I don't know.
I would imagine so. Let's talk about our general history with the Knives Out franchise. I saw the first film. This is like one of the only films I've been able to see in an advanced screening of. I remember when it came out, the production were trying to tap into crime writing circles, and the Crime Writers Association, which I was a member of a while ago, were offered free tickets. So I was able to go and bring a friend, and it was in White City, where they, the BBC studios, it's a little cinema there. And I remember, it was a fun experience going to the, advanced screening, and, they're sort of like, oh, here's a poster, share it afterwards and say how much you loved it and all that kind of stuff. And nice. I believe I did. I watched the film and did the deed of, they want you to say something positive, and there were positive things to say about it. But I just remember going into that film with a certain level of, I don't know, my back was up a little bit because the marketing was so annoying. And the marketing at the time was this like, ooh, Rian Johnson reinvigorates Agatha Christie. Rian Johnson has brought back the Agatha Christie. I'm like, Agatha Christie never went away. Like,
Yeah.
stop it. And that
Yeah.
that whole like sheen that they were putting on the first Knives Out movie just irritated the absolute shit out of me. So
Well,
then when I actually went and saw the film, I was just sort of like, I mean, this is fine. He didn't reinvent the goddamn wheel here. It's actually riddled with plot holes, but you know, I don't I wasn't connecting with the general like hype of it. I don't know
yeah.
about you. What was your experience with Knives Out?
Well, I think if you compare it to sort of any episode of Poirot, it seems fairly standard because Benoit Blanc
Yes.
is a very Poirot-ish character. He's a bit of an accent, he's a bit of a voice, he's a bit of a two-dimensional character. But so is Poirot, and so is Marple, really. They're not people that we really get between. So he's a bit of a turn, if you like. And I remember thinking, okay, well, that's the idea of this. I remember thinking, if you compare it to anything like that, it seems fairly standard. I think what impressed me about it was the fact that Rian Johnson was coming off the back of a Star Wars movie and was a sort of A-list director. And he'd chosen to do this fairly old-fashioned form of storytelling to bring it back, which I did actually at the time think was interesting. And I am a fan of murder mysteries. I like the puzzle. I like thinking about who the killer is and trying to work out the clues and stuff. So I was geared for it. I would say my criticisms, and I don't want to get into it all too soon, but my criticisms are more about the deductions, which I think often aren't up to the standard of somebody like Agatha Christie or many of the other Golden Age novelists, or frankly, a lot of the noir detective writers who have, the thing that bugs me about Benoit Blanc a bit is that he's always telling us that he believes in logic and deduction, and he believes in, I'm a man of reason and I work things out. But a lot of the things across the three movies that he actually deduces, they're not deductions, they're kind of intuition. He sort of gets a vibe off someone. Like he realizes that, for example, in Glass Onion, a movie I defended, but even in that, Edward Norton, he kind of works out that Edward Norton is suspicious because he's presenting himself as this genius, sort of Elon Musk type guy, but he doesn't know the difference between the Adriatic and the Aegean Sea. And you sort of think, well, that's not a real, that doesn't prove anything. Like one thing's got nothing to do with the other. Is I don't believe you really did invent this sophisticated tech because you don't know this particular word, so you're not an intelligent person. And you think, well, that's funny. And it was quite a good joke. But it makes me feel that the way to enjoy these movies is to sort of enjoy them as just comedies, almost like parodies of something like Poirot, rather than an actual serious piece of crime writing.
Yes. That's a really good point. And I think because I hung out the other day, we went and saw the 60th anniversary screening of Thunderball in Hammersmith, which was good fun. And we sort of talked a little about Glass Onion then, and I sort of wondered, I think I mentioned it when we were hanging out, but I was sort of thinking about this whole franchise and that if this was something more leaning into the Clue, the film Cluedo, like if it went more into the absurdity of that.
Right. Yeah.
I think a lot of my criticisms would evaporate.
Would they? Because I think that Glass Onion is the one that does that the most. I think the Glass Onion is the one that's borderline parody, that touches parody the sort of closest, whereas it's sort of the one we kind of criticize the most.
Yes, it's only because the franchise didn't start out in that vein, right? It went for serious, and so therefore it continued, but also has the zaniness, and it's a bit, frankly, it's a bit like The Last Jedi, which has its serious moments, but excessive misfirings of comedy, to quote Red Letter Media.
Right.
It just sort of, the two don't mesh. And I feel that way across all three of the Knives Out films generally.
Really? Well, I know what you mean. I mean, one of the things that bugged me about Knives Out was that Rian Johnson is one of these directors that's always trying to be funny. And he's not always funny. Sometimes it sort of doesn't land very well. I would say that the Benoit Blanc movies generally, in terms of the comedy, actually become a bit more sure-footed as they go on. I think that this movie that we're about to discuss actually does have some very funny bits in it, but that's partly because they're kind of curtailed a bit more. They're a little bit more It's less of a sort of gag fest. And when it ever tries to be funny, it's more successful because you've sort of forgotten that he's trying to be funny. Glass Onion, I think, is pretty much purely a comedy. And I think that was my argument last time. But I think that you're right. It doesn't, I mean, it sort of isn't really a normal crime thing at all. Like it's not a normal crime novel. It doesn't really hold a candle to a lot of the Golden Age novels it's referencing in terms of its mystery. But I think actually Wake Up Dead Man for me is the most successful in that regard. But yeah, no, Knives Out, it's always trying to be funny, and a lot of the jokes are very forced. There's lots of gags in it. I'm trying to think of examples where there's a setup to a joke where the cop says to Jamie Lee Curtis, how was he's after the dad's been murdered. How was the party, by the way? And she says in a very sarcastic way, oh, after my dad died? Yeah, it was great. And you sort of think, well, a cop wouldn't ask that question. He wouldn't set up her to say that. And that's just kind of a bit contrived. And that type of thing really bugged me. And I think, but you're right, like Rian Johnson he obviously does see himself as a sort of borderline comedy director. I think the reason I do sort of feel as though he's becoming more successful at that. I don't really remember the comedy in The Last Jedi that much, which is probably a sign that it wasn't that successful. Were there funny bits?
Pretty bad.
Okay.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah. I thought about The Last Jedi a little bit when I was watching this movie, Wake Up Dead Man, because I think there's some sort of thematic similarities. They're both... in The Last Jedi is about a character who's kind of losing faith, like Luke Skywalker's kind of faith in Jedi Order, which is kind of what's going on with our young priest in this. Yeah. So that's obviously something on Rian Johnson's mind a little bit. That's obviously something that resonates with him. And I was thinking maybe that's why I liked Wake Up Dead Man a little bit more, because it felt a bit more like he was speaking from the heart a little bit in terms of that character.
Maybe we'll touch upon that in a minute. I do want to go back to one more something else you mentioned. That was the character of Benoit Blanc.
Oh right, yeah.
Just generally, I want to talk about him now. He is. I feel like as the franchise goes on, he just becomes more and more and more annoying. And it was interesting. I felt in this film he was hamming it up to like 11 on this one. I hung out with a friend earlier today who her take was that, oh, finally he dialed it back. And I was like, you think he dialed it back?
Wow,
I was like, she's like, well, I did have a bunch of wine beforehand. So like maybe.
I think the bit where he goes, Scooby-Dooby-Doo is not dialing it back.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
I know what he means. I know what your friend means. I think there was, I think it's the fact that he looks quite cool in this one. He's got his long hair. His suits him more. I think he didn't look that cool in the previous two. He kind of looked a bit silly. It's like Daniel Craig is really rocking the look in this one. And I think that's maybe why he comes across as a bit more sort of real, because it's kind of that's what I imagine Daniel Craig actually does wear in his
he does. Time. Daniel Craig wears some weird outfits. You can see them in his runway shots. But I mean, I guess what sort of frustrates me about Benoit Blanc is that I like you mentioned earlier about sort of Poirot and Miss Marple. There's this really famous quote from Raymond Chandler in his essay, The Simple Art of Murder, where he's taking down, like eviscerating Golden Age crime fiction. And he essentially says Sherlock Holmes is not a character. Sherlock Holmes is an idea and a couple of memorable lines of dialogue.
Right.
And I don't disagree fully. And I think you can apply that to a lot of the Golden Age detectives. But I think what does frustrate me about Benoit Blanc is he is either imitating Golden Age people, but the only thing he really is an accent. He's just a hick accent, and that's about it. And it kind of wears thin. By this third film, you're like, I understand why you, Rian Johnson, used him almost sparingly in this third film, because
he does.
It's just annoying.
Well, that's the thing I actually liked about this film, is that he's not really in it for the first 40 minutes at all. And then when he turns up, I'd forgotten about him. I was actually quite, I've got to say, I thought Josh O'Connor's really good in this film. I was really into him as a lead. When Benoit Blanc turns up, I was like, oh yeah, this guy. I'd totally forgotten about him. I was kind of like not really missing him particularly at all. But I have to say, I do think there was a concerted effort in this movie to sort of give him a bit of a backstory that would have some kind of, resonance to the theme. Like the whole, like his first scene, he comes in and he goes quite hard about Catholicism, and he's complaining about the church, and he's complaining about, the history of Catholicism and the homophobia and the different sort of elements and the sort of sins of the church. And and I think Daniel Craig is very good in that scene. He does seem angry, and he talks about how his mother was a very religious person. And it feels like Rian Johnson and Daniel Craig are trying to sort of like, let's introduce a new facet. Let's introduce a thing we didn't know about him. In the last movie, we discover he's gay. In this one, we discover he's an atheist. It's kind of like, now here's another thing. So I take your point. I think he is, the way he is as a character, he's very two-dimensional, flamboyant. But I think they were trying to sort of find another sort of dimension to him. In this one, I'm not sure how successful it was, but definitely in that first scene, you can see they're thinking, let's try and have him be a bit more than just a jokey character that kind of arrives.
Yeah. Do you feel, because this, to me, that scene, which you're talking about with Daniel Craig, or with Benoit Blanc rambling on about his disdain for the church, which it felt like low-hanging fruit writing, like, you know what I mean? It was just sort of, it's like his whole sort of rage, his the way he was acting, what he was saying, felt so like it felt forced to me. Definitely not.
Yeah, it is. It's very like coming in and sort of stating the theme of the movie, sort of saying like, and it's one of those things where you can feel the screenwriting, where you think, oh, at some point, he's going to have his sort of certainty in, atheism, if you like, sort of like attacked. Like he's going to start to see the point in the church as the story goes along, which does happen. And I think that's relatively effective, but it does kind of hit you quite hard with the kind of, not everybody likes Catholics. I think it's probably because we've been watching 40 minutes of people who are, think that is the center of the universe, and they sort of he probably felt we had to come in and not have Benoit Blanc be that guy. It is a little bit, no, it's unquestionably on the nose. Like it's very sort of an overall.
But do you think it's Benoit Blanc, or do you think it's Rian Johnson? And because those scenes like that, scenes like that in movies and in books always pull me out, because I'm like, this is now the writer preaching to me. And there's this really famous quote from Robert McKee's book Story, where he basically says, look, your story should never be a thesis. The minute your story becomes the thesis, you've now lost the audience. They're not here to be preached at. They're not here to be, taught this sort of lesson in either an academic way or a more, moral sort of way. And I feel like that scene was one of them. But then also the scene later on with Cy. The spoilers for this whole film, by the way, guys. Cy, who was the illegitimate son of Josh Brolin's character, Wix, played by Daryl McCormick. When he's talking about, I was had some political aspirations, and I lists all these right-winged things that he was like playing off of, and
Oh yeah.
And it just sort of felt like he's just cramming in all the things.
Yeah.
And I'm just sort of like, couldn't you have done this a bit more? Like, couldn't you like finesse this a little bit, Ryan, in your 2.5 hour film?
Yeah, that's true. I always think that in my own writing, I sometimes find myself going unsubtle with certain characters if I don't have long with them. Like if I've got a villain who's only in 2 scenes, I sort of might dial him up a bit, because it's like, I need to make it clear this guy's a threat. And maybe he felt like, I think the minute he starts doing that, one of my problems with it is that all he's really telling me is that this guy, Cy, probably isn't the killer. because I'm sort of being like, he's not interested enough in him. He's kind of getting him out of the way all in one scene. And it's kind of, you're sort of reading it as a viewer thinking, okay, well, this guy is sort of, giving voice to Rian Johnson's feeling about, cynical politicians and kind of people on the online who just use hot button topics to kind of push their agenda and get people scared of whatever, immigrants, trans people, whatever, all the other ones he listed. And obviously that's, quite rightly getting Rian Johnson's goat, but he's sort of feeling that I now need to hit this quite hard with this guy. So we don't like this guy. He's a bad guy. We don't like him. And that Josh O'Connor doesn't like him. And that we're kind of like, okay. But I'm sort of thinking like he's almost too bad and in a cartoonish way for me to think that the ending is going to revolve around him that much. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, it's quite, I'm saying my least favorite thing about this film, and I like it generally, but is that all the suspects who aren't the killer are quite thinly sketched. And that's a good example of a scene where it's just like, he comes in, he's got a thing, we hear it, and it's he's not like a real person at all. Like, he doesn't feel real and lived in.
Yeah, something along that same line. And I agree. I was when I think both with Knives Out and with Glass Onion, I felt there was maybe a little bit of a stronger effort to make you feel that there was, real motive behind the different people in the room.
Right. Yeah,
I don't think there was much of any motive for anyone except for one person, and that was it. It was obvious from the beginning who this was.
No, I do agree with that. I remember thinking that it's not going to be Kerry Washington because her character isn't interesting enough. This whole thing about she's trying to live up to her dad's legacy, and there's a son. I remember thinking
her dad who's not a character.
Who's not a character, and it just felt like, again, he's not interested in these people that aren't the killer. He's just racing towards the revelation. And I didn't for one minute think it was the Andrew Scott character, who felt to me like a sort of made up of leftover bits from previous scripts. He's a novelist, like the plumber character. He's sort of had his brain poisoned by the internet, like some of the other people in previous scripts. And he just didn't strike me as someone that he felt like a bit of a "here's one I made earlier" guy. Yeah. And I remember thinking, I doubt very much the third act of this movie is going to be revolving around him. I agree. I don't think any of them really had motives. Like, I don't really understand what that guy's motive was. He's trying to, they're sort of the same motive, that they're all kind of feeding off this priest, played by Josh Brolin, who, by the way, in case I forget to say, I thought Josh Brolin was amazing in all the scenes. Like, he was kind of my favorite in it, like, especially the scenes where he's, punching Josh O'Connor. I thought he was really good. But like, it's the fact that they're sort of like his disciples. One of them wants to write a book about him. One of them wants to turn him into a political figure. One of them is believing that he's going to make her walk again. None of them really, I mean, I guess some of those things could have been fleshed out and made more interesting, but you're right. It didn't really, I think who the killer turns out to be, and I don't know if we want to get into this yet.
Not yet, but we will soon.
It was pretty, of all the three, even though this is probably the movie I like the most, I think the killer was the most obvious. Like, it's sort of like, it was very much signaled earlier on. And because it's the character that is the most interesting, you sort of hope it's going to be that person, because you sort of think it's the only person I really want to hear more from. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's true. I think I think kind of going along the same vein, what did frustrate me with this on this watch of this was that I think it was quite near the end of the film. I wrote down in my notes, this film is 90% exposition, and that's the big problem for me. It opens up with Josh O'Connor's Reverend Judd recounting all sorts of events, and that's basically what fills the first kind of 30-40 minutes of that story. And
but I didn't see it with exposition, though. It just felt like
I did, because basically what he's doing is he's going around randomly talking to all the people who would be suspects, and they're just exposing, they're just talking to him, telling him things. And I get it, he's a priest, they might, a bit more blah, blah, but there was no real sense of like, it felt so contrived. There's there's that, it's that thing where like in certain crime novels or films where it's like the guy goes to here and people just tell him stuff, and it's like, I need more than just that. And so the first kind of 30-40 minutes is basically Josh O'Connor walking around places, people just telling him all sorts of stuff, and he's recounting these events, which for a brief moment in time made me wonder if this was going to be a Roger Ackroyd situation. And that
I 100% did. And
I think he did that on purpose with the editing of that, because he opens the film with Benoit Blanc looking at the paper that that Judd was writing. And then once you catch up to the fact that he's like, here, write it all down, I was like, okay, so that's now definitely off the table. It is 100% Glenn Close. We're good.
Well, I don't know if you remember, you and I went to the cinema about 4 weeks ago, and there was a trailer for Wake Up Dead Man. And I remember saying to you, if the killer turns out to be Jeremy Renner, that will be the third time that Rian Johnson has had a Marvel actor be the killer at the end. Is it like a hero from another movie is the villain in this one? He's had Captain America, the Hulk, and in this one he gets Hawkeye, because, as you know, it's two killers in this. And I remember watching it thinking, oh, he has done that, except
he has.
Jeremy Renner is not the interesting one. There's two killers, and the interesting one is Glenn Close. And I actually really like the fact that Glenn Close is the killer. It was obvious, but I like the fact just what it to me it felt more thematically interesting than anything else could have been. What you were saying earlier about you shouldn't write a thesis, you shouldn't state your thesis. Like, I do sort of wonder about whether this movie does explore like Benoit Blanc's atheism, and does it challenge it at all? Because at the end he doesn't, he shows quite a bit of grace towards that character and allows her to come back in. And I was wondering whether you felt that. I felt that actually was quite successful. The fact that he's got this sort of, she almost represents the entire Catholic Church. It's kind of like he nicks the church at the end. And I was wondering whether it was relevant that, he talks about his mother being this sort of old, very religious woman. And at the end, he's kind of, nicking a woman called Martha, who is kind of what you imagine his mother might be like. So it's kind of like, feels like, I did sort of think with it does kind of interrogate the idea of Benoit Blanc's attitude towards the church, that he kind of sort of end of the day arrests his own mum in a way. But I was happy that she was the killer, because I did think it gave it was predictable, but it was also the kind of the most satisfying person who could be. I don't think I would have been satisfied if any of the other people had been the killer. I'd been like, I don't care if Andrew Scott killed this guy. But it sort of feels as though, having her. But as you say, it was incredibly predictable. There's no question.
It was.
Also,
it was.
So that's Roger. You mentioned the Roger Ackroyd thing, which I assume, well, I don't assume, in case people don't know, that's a reference to an Agatha Christie novel with a very audacious ending. Are we going to ruin the murder of Roger Ackroyd on here? You don't want to spoil it?
Let's leave it. Let's not. Maybe there might be someone. Who knows?
Okay, there might be someone. But I sort of think the Glenn Close narration is kind of has Ackroyd-y elements to it, where I was in a way he does do the murder of Roger Ackroyd, because she is the narrator at a certain point, and it's anyway.
Yes, that is. It's true. Nah, I'm keeping it all in.
I thought that was really interesting. I did sort of have a brief moment where I did wonder whether or not Josh O'Connor would turn out to be the killer, but you're right, they kind of dispense with it quite early, and it's kind of like, no. And I'm glad he wasn't.
No, I mean, I am too. It was something I was like, well, maybe this is his breaking away from the Marvel character, is the Marvel actor is the killer, and then nope, still not. Are we sure? Has Glenn Close been in any Marvel movies? Are we sure she hasn't been in a Marvel movie?
She was in Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Me.
Well, I don't think that's why he's doing it. But yeah, I mean, at this point, almost everyone has been. But
Come on, we're
been,
3 for 3.
Well,
we're
4
3 for 3.
2 killers in this, so that really we're 4 in 3. So it's kind of it's just Marvel acts. So when they announced the cast list of the next Benoit Blanc mystery,
yes, and Chris Pratt is cast in it.
Yeah, it's going to be him.
Oh my god, that I cannot believe I forgot Glenn Close was in Guardians.
Yeah, I mean that wasn't a very big character, and I'm sure he's not.
Doesn't matter.
But
it doesn't matter. It backs up what you've said, though. It backs up exactly what you've said, which is hilarious.
It's going to be a Marvel actor. Yeah.
Yeah. So this one, like I said, I got very tired of the kind of constant exposition dumps, and I felt like that was sort of, and that it just sort of kept happening along the way, even beyond the letter that, or the letter that Judd was writing. Once you get through to a certain bit, it just sort of keeps going. Even when Glenn Close is recounting all this stuff, you're like, oh, okay, all right, I get it.
Well, that's the bit where I really was like, we're not being told this if she isn't the killer. There's no reason why I'm hearing about her as a kid, unless she knows too much. And exactly. I remember her confrontation with the young Alice. What's her name? Is she called Alice? Grace, or like the Harlot
Grace?
Grace. And I remember watching that. And there's more to this than she's saying.
Yes.
So
when they did that scene where she leans in to say something, whisper something to Grace, and we don't see her mouth, I'm like, well, obviously the thing that she's saying isn't the thing that you are saying you've said. Obviously you said something else, and that's why she goes apeshit on you. But in addition to that, when she goes in and talks about how there was this great sum of money that was that the Reverend came about. Yeah, it's gone missing. And then the next scene is they're trying to play it off like the Reverend's wife, stroke Josh Brolin's mom. She goes crazy, has a demonic fit, and starts demolishing the church. I knew in that very moment what she was doing. She's looking for the treasure. I wrote it down. I was like, well, she's looking for the treasure. He's hidden it inside the church. No duh.
You're smarter than me. I actually did not pick up that. Like, I did pick up that Glenn Close was the killer, but I didn't work out why necessarily. So I'll give them that. Like, I didn't work out why. I didn't work out how.
Yeah.
Although I did work out a bit how. I think I worked out that if Glenn Close is the killer and she's dressing him, we're told that very early on, like, one of her things is that she dresses him for the thing. I sort of thought, there'll be something there. There'll be something hidden in his costume. So I did kind of get that. But
what I told my wife, what I told Claire, because she was coming in and out of the room as I was watching this, and I was like, you know what? I was like, this is where he's died. No one was in that room. He's just done it. And I was like, look, it's either staged or he was stabbed before he went in the way that they do in. We were talking about Sherlock at the weekend, I think. Were we?
Right.
I think we
yes.
Sherlock at the weekend.
Yeah.
And in the episode where Watson and Mary get married, I think it's in season 3, episode 2, the empty, I can't remember what it is, the whatever, I can't remember the name of the episode. But the trick with that is basically there's this guy who's got this really sharp needle that he can stick into people and then pull it out, and they don't even know they've been stabbed. And then when they undo their belts, basically that then releases the blood and then they die. And that was one of the big, the big gimmicks in that episode. And I was like, surely he's not going to nick that idea. And it was sort of, then Claire said, well, or when someone was checking the body, that's when they actually stabbed him. And I was like, sure, that too. And it was sort of an amalgamation where it's like he framed it by having the thing stuck to his thing. So he was framing that he'd been stabbed before, right? Because it was stuck to his thing. But then the thing is, Jeremy Renner's character then went in and actually did the real stabbing.
Yeah.
So like Claire got it fully, but I was like, I sort of predicted it. Like, was he stabbed beforehand? But he wasn't stabbed beforehand, but he was he was setting up being stabbed beforehand.
Yeah. I wish I could say that, but I don't think I did. I definitely guessed the thing that somehow Glenn Close has sabotaged the clothes. I think that was the only thing I really got. But yeah, no, you're right. Once you actually, it's one of those things that when you're watching a murder mystery, I don't know about you, but I don't stop it to think about it. So, but if you were to sort of get a pen and paper out and start going through things, you might be able to work it out. But like sometimes it's moving too quickly for you to give time to think. I think that as a mystery, I think this is the best mystery of the three movies. I think this is the one where I sort of think, I mean, I agree that Glenn Close is very predictable, but then I didn't predict why and I didn't predict how, so, which I think is more important. You know, where we like, you said that there's too much exposition in this film, and I agree, but I also think the murder mystery is the most exposition heavy genre to write. You are constantly having to describe things that have already happened before the murder, and everyone's telling their story. So it's sometimes a tricky thing to avoid. And and I've definitely had with a book, with Ask for Mercy, I had quite a lot of people tell me, and they delight in telling you that they guessed the murder at the end. So I knew who the murderer would be from the very beginning. And what's interesting about that is sometimes if you know someone who's reading the book and they say, I'm reading the book halfway through, and you ask them to predict, who do you think the killer is? They often get it wrong. But then later on, they tell you they got it right. That's the first annoying thing. And the other thing is you sort of think, well, I get that you got the person, but there's only a finite amount of suspects anyway. Did you get why and did you get how? Is actually like that generally is actually a little trickier, and actually most people don't really get that. And I didn't get it.
Behind the how and the why can be tricky. I agree.
That could be the most interesting bit anyway, rather than the who. Because the who, you know, you get presented with 6 people. You're gonna at some point during it suspect all 6 of them. And I agree that this one was very guessable. But
it was guessable before you even got to the other 5 people. That was the problem. It was like, oh wait, she's done it.
The other suspects feel like afterthoughts. Like you say, the motivations aren't strong enough. The characterizations aren't strong enough. The movie doesn't seem interested in them enough, outside of Cy being kind of what Rian Johnson wants to tell us about how he feels about the modern world. Everyone else is just sort of, you know, sort of quite sketchy. None of them felt like real people. You don't spend too long thinking about them, really. It's true. It was
also, I think they were quite lame red herrings. Like the Swiss bank account red herring.
Remind me what
they
that
literally
was.
Just exactly. You don't remember. They just pulled it out of his ass. Basically, it's when they were trying to work. Basically, they had worked out that that Wicks knows about the money that's hidden somewhere. And then out of nowhere they just said, well, where was you hiding money 30 years ago? A Swiss bank account. How did you land there? And then they just start talking about looking for a number that could be a Swiss bank account number. And I'm like, what are we doing? Like, I know it's in the church. I know it's in the church, guys. Come on.
Yeah, that's funny. Did you? So, I didn't get the fact that he'd swallowed the rock. I mean, I think that's sort of impossible.
I mean, no, I didn't get that, but it was in the church. I knew it was in the. It was on the grounds. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I sort of figured it would be in the actual sanctuary. I didn't think it would be in his body. Fair enough, you know, whatever. But I also thought, like, did they not do an autopsy?
Right. Yeah.
Like, how did he die?
How long ago was it? Yeah, they would find that. Yeah, that's quite a big old chunk of thing to have. Maybe they would have. Yeah, I don't know. Would they? He's a man of the cloth.
Yeah, because they would go through the stomach. They'd see what was, you know, because he wasn't murdered, but he died unexpectedly. So was it drink? Was it food? Was it heart failure? What was it? Surely they would have done something. So it was like, let's. You know, okay, you're hoping that's still going to be in there, but you know, it's you know, not everyone gets an autopsy. Sometimes it doesn't happen, and I guess that was the plot convenience for this is it didn't happen, and maybe that was a family decision. Maybe Josh Brolin's character said, "I don't want an autopsy, just leave it." But that is entirely plausible. That could happen. But I just sort of thought like. Okay, but then I'm like, but how did he die? Was it heart failure?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Was it that he choked on the?
I don't know. When I first watched it, I kind of assumed that we were going to find out that he'd been killed either by the daughter or by.
I wondered that too.
I thought Martha's killed him, which is why I was on to Martha straight away. But no, I don't know. No, I think he just had. I can't remember how he died. Actually, yeah, he just sort of keels over, doesn't he?
So like, well,
maybe it's not suspicious. They wouldn't do an autopsy. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible. If it's not suspicious, they might do an autopsy. If they think it's heart failure, blah, 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 they might not do it. But it just felt so out of nowhere that I'm like, I can't believe that there wasn't any sort of,
I mean, I think it's a clever plot. The idea that they're all trying to get into the crypt because there's a diamond in there that is the entire fortune sort of explains why. It does explain everything. But yeah, you're right. It's it's a bit of a contrivance, but these things are often a bit contrived. I don't mind it in a golden age. Yeah, as long as it makes sense, it's logical. I don't care too much.
Well, I guess I don't know how logical it is to swallow that massive diamond, because where's that going to go? Like, you're either going to shit it out or it's going to screw up your insides and you're going to die from swallowing this giant diamond. Like, what was the game?
Presumably that is what killed him then. Like, it probably is the fact that he swallowed a massive diamond.
It has to be.
Yeah.
But then did he choke on it then? Because if he choked on it, like, again, I don't know. It's just it was a weird. It was a weird choice. It was a weird choice of where to hide the diamond, I think. But something you mentioned earlier was that the sort of once kind of on the mystery and the solving the case and all that kind of stuff. This is where obviously we're a film noir podcast. We mostly talk about noirs and neo noirs, and occasionally dip into the golden age style thrillers. But this is where I think I end up preferring the noir stuff more to the golden age, and that is there is less. Sometimes you just know who the bad guy is a lot of the times, and it's all about just trying to nail the bad guy. You know what I mean? It's so. And I think I was saying to my friend earlier today, I was like, honestly, like most people, like you and I, James, we're heavily steeped in the publishing world, and we hear all the time like, oh, this book was so twisty, this is such a twisty book, oh my god, the twist. No one fucking remembers a twist unless it's Murder on the Orient Express.
That's true. Yeah People don't.
I was asking my friend today, I was like, what's the twist in A Study in Scarlet? What's the twist in The Man with the Twisted Lip? What's the and she was like, I don't know. I was like, exactly. What I mean?
Remember the one in A Study in Scarlet, but I wouldn't know the one from The Man with the Twisted Lip.
Yes.
But, I do remember some of the Agatha Christie twists, but I take your point. It's not the twist that makes you return. It's the characters and the vibe and the tone and the sense of a journey.
Yes, which is why I think it works. This is why I feel like this is why I think I'm drawn more to the noir stuff than maybe some of this stuff, and that is because in The Big Sleep, you kind of know who the baddies are. You understand that you understand that, he is operating in the world of the bad guys. He's working, he knows this person is the blackmailer. He knows this person is doing this. Yeah, we might not know who killed the chauffeur, but we know that Carmen is doing these sorts of bad things. In the Glass Key, we sort of understand the political corruption and all that kind of stuff that's going on, but you might not know who the murderer is. There's always some sort of reveal, but it's more about the atmosphere. It's more about the mood and the world and the character, that it's sort of, you don't need that big sort of denouncement moment that you get in these sorts of films. That if that's your whole gimmick, I think this is what frustrates with this, because to go into things that I do like the character. I do like Josh O'Connor's character of Father Judge. He's basically Father Brown. I would have much rather just seen the whole film with him as the lead, solving this murder himself. I like this guy who goes from being a boxer who killed a man in the ring to finding God and trying to, it's not this, it's arms open. I thought that was a really quite nice message. I thought he did a really good job portraying sort of what I would say is like contemporary Christianity and how it should be maybe embraced rather than the old fire brimstone. Like, I was cool with that, so I really like that, and I don't dislike the idea that Benoit Blanc is an atheist, but there wasn't. It was just sort of these couple of moments where they hammer it in really hard, so that he can kind of have a silly little Damascus moment, road to Damascus moment, and then just move on from it. Yeah. And I wish that they could have spent more time, because I think you have maybe read an interesting thing into this, and that is Glenn Close's character, does he see her as his mom? That isn't explored in the film or touched upon, but I would have loved that to be. That's a cool idea. Explore that.
Yeah. Well, I only noticed it on the second time, and I don't even know if, but it's just because he shows compassion to her, not really, but he sort of says, "We're not going to do this publicly. You can come and tell us that you're the murderer privately." And I kind of feel it's a kind of kindness that he shows, that he seems to have learned off Josh O'Connor, who has kind of been advocating for we shouldn't be fighting these people. Like, the killer is, because he is a killer as well. The killer is somebody who God loves. So we need to be, almost allowing that person the opportunity to confess and ask for forgiveness. And I think that is really good. I think that's where I think this movie does explore its themes. And I think especially in that, a scene that I think is really good, and it's the best scene in any of these movies. I don't know how you felt about it. I think some people might find it a little corny, but where he's on the phone to the woman, asking about who opened the crypt, and she sent machinery, and then she suddenly says, "Pray for me, Father." When he's panicking, he's strung out, he's trying to work out who the killer is. He's obviously thinking about his own situation. He's in the middle of a murder mystery, and then he has to sort of stop what he's doing to spend time with this lady who's having this really tough time, and it kind of reminds him as to why he wears the priest's collar in the first place. And I found that scene very moving, actually. And I bought into Josh O'Connor's turn, that he suddenly becomes a bit, I don't care who the killer is. It's not my job. Because there's that line that I really liked. I wrote it down because I liked it so much. Early on, when he's talking to Jeffrey Wright, and he says, if you start fighting wolves, everyone you don't understand is a wolf. And I think that's a really good way of sort of expressing a pure Christian thought that is kind of like, we can't go around saying, we've got to take this person on, like the Brolin character is doing, where he's sort of seeing the world as an enemy. It's kind of like a nice way of saying, sort of like, look, everyone, including her at the end, and including the harlot whore, and all these people are, which is a funny thing to be called anyway. But and I found that actually quite effective. And I think it's that element that, for me, puts this film above the other two Benoit Blanc movies. It feels that it is about something in a way that I don't, and it's about faith and about like what Christianity actually means. I don't think that the other two really have anything as sort of, they're not exploring anything anywhere near as profound as that. I take your point that there's some clumsy stuff in it, but I do think it is fair to say that it does explore its own themes.
It does, and but it does more through Josh O'Connor's character. I don't think it adequately challenges, or we see a good amount of turn from Benoit Blanc. That's my problem, because I agree. I like that scene. At first, that scene was pissing me off because I thought, why is this woman? This is just annoying that she's just rambling on. This isn't realistic. What are you doing? Just stop trying to be funny. But then when it sombered down, and she was like, when she did that bit, like, Reverend, can you? And she's, she starts stuttering and pausing, and then she's like, pray for me. And then and I like that bit. Like, that to me was. That was a moment of really good, like, that was character coming to the forefront of the scene, and that is, he, as you were saying, he's going from this crazy, frenzied trying to get information, frustrated with her, trying to get off the phone, to this finding who he is again, finding what his role is again, and leaving the room, leaving the investigation, to do what he feels called to do. And I agree. I think that was probably the best scene in the film. It was the most that, and I think the final scene with O'Connor and Close are the two best scenes. And the frustrating thing about the final scene with Close is you got fucking Benoit Blanc in the background trying to like rubberneck his way into the scene, and I'm just like, shut up, Daniel Craig, shut the fuck up. Let this be a scene between Judd and Martha, because that's what it needs to be. You aren't involved, Benoit Blanc. Get out of here. You know?
Yeah, I didn't mind that. I liked the distinction between Josh O'Connor when he realizes this isn't my case to solve. I'm not a detective. This isn't my job. Working out who this killer is not my job. And I guess that's why Benoit Blanc does need to be in that scene, because it is his job to sort of reveal who the killer is. But you're right.
It's the scene where they're on when she's dying, and he's just, he's like, Grace, you need to make sure Grace is, I'm like, shut up, Blanc, shut up. Like, because it's like he doesn't need to be standing over there like that. The scene where she's dying and Judd is doing the absolution of stuff. Like that's the bit where it annoys me that Daniel Craig has stood right behind and right over that moment, because I'm like, this is a scene between these two. Let Judd do his thing. You've done your thing, Benoit Blanc. Thank you. Bye. Let this scene between these.
Yeah, because this is what, and I'm not a Catholic, I'm not a believer or anything. I was Christian Catholic, but I'm not. I'm closer to Benoit Blanc in my attitude. But that is a very good dramatization of what a priest is for. Like, this is when he's important. Like, this is like she is dying. He's reading the last rites, but also she's asking for forgiveness. He's sort of, it is very effective. I mean, the more you think about it, the more he is the lead character, Josh O'Connor, and it's not.
Definitely.
And I think he's a very endearing lead character as well. I really cared about him. Like, I'm complaining about all these other characters, saying they weren't very well written. I actually think that is quite a well-written character.
I agree.
It's just a shame it's just him that's well written, but like it's all like he's the only one with a third dimension. He's the only one that sort of feels like a human being.
Yes. Do you think Reverend Judd will be the is he as we look at all the Knives Out characters, these huge ensemble casts, is he the one, do you think, stands out the most, the most well drawn?
Maybe. I mean, this might be recency bias speaking. I haven't revisited the other ones, but I think so. I think the other characters that are sort of his companions or who he helps, I don't remember them being. I don't remember the Anna de Armas one being sort of interesting enough, and I don't remember the Janelle Monáe character. I just remember her being a bit silly because. I don't know if you remember that she was a twin. So it was kind of like a bit of a dark character in a way. I'm trying to think who stands out in the other. I remember liking the Jamie Lee Curtis character quite a bit, in so much as she felt quite real. But no, I think probably it is Josh O'Connor who's going to sort of be remembered as the one that you sort of half wish it was all about. And I think he's a really good and up and coming actor. I've liked him in everything I've seen him in ever since.
I do too.
He was in The Crown playing Prince Charles. That's when I first saw him.
He was very good in that. He was very good in that.
Yeah, he was good. And that's a wonky series, that one. That he kind of stood out. And he's
starring in Steven Spielberg's Disclosure as well, isn't he?
Oh, I saw a trailer for that earlier today. Yeah, it looks interesting.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was becoming quite so big so quickly, but I'm very happy for him.
Apparently, I don't know if this is true or not. I saw it somewhere on Twitter through some entertainment outlet, said that Rian Johnson wasn't aware of Josh O'Connor as an actor. It was Daniel Craig who said, you should cast this guy in this film.
Right.
To which I say, well done, Daniel Craig. I appreciate that, if that is true, because that was a good call, because he was the best thing. I went into this film a little bit apprehensive because I really hated Glass Onion, as most people know. I nowhere near hated the first Knives Out like I did Glass Onion. It just sort of fell limp for me and just felt a little bit hokey. Whereas I felt there was a sense of sort of like, maybe I will enjoy this, and I don't. I don't I far from hate this film. It's a sort of vanilla film for me, but I think
Right.
O'Connor gives it a little bit of an edge. I don't know if I could say which is the favorite of the series.
Right.
I feel like this sort of on par with one for me. But I do appreciate this particular character. I appreciate him more than the others in the previous series.
Yeah, I think I agree. If and when they announce the next Benoit Blanc mystery, are you in? Is this one sort of repaired some damage from Glass Onion? Are you excited?
Really? I won't be excited, but it'll be something that the podcast can cover.
Curious.
I think that's
Yeah.
Yes.
I kind of assume that I was thinking about the fact that the three of them that we've had up to now have all been placed in quite distinctive seasons. That if there's the first one is kind of a fall movie, it's autumn, it's Thanksgiving, I think, is in the movie. Then there's the summer holiday one, Glass Onion, and then there's this one, which is Easter. So it's spring. It seems quite wintry, but it's set in Easter. So the next one needs to be a kind of Christmassy one. It needs to be snow. It needs to have maybe some kind of alpine setting, so they can do the four seasons.
Yes, you know what? I didn't clock that before, but that is actually he probably is doing the 4 seasons.
Yeah, because I just think it's so marked that one of them's like Glass Onion was so sunny, and it was so sort of summer holiday vibe. No, I think so. And when I first watched this one, I thought, oh, this is the winter one, and then I realized, oh no, it's not. It's set in Easter when it's all about the resurrection of Christ and stuff. So I kind of
oddly came out at Christmas time.
Yeah, so I suspect whatever the next one is, there will be snow. There will be snow all over it. That will be the vibe. I mean, they all come out at Christmas, don't they? But Glass Onion did, even though it's very summery. It's quite a good. I think these movies are good for, like I say, I've enjoyed all three of them, despite sounding like I don't enjoy them. We're picking them apart, and that's what we're doing here. But I actually do genuinely. I've had a good time with all three of them. I think they're very good Christmas Day movies. Like I can imagine a lot of families watching this on Boxing Day around the TV and actually having a perfectly good time, because it is very kind of standard Poirot-y, late Sunday night TV of the Golden Age crime, and I think it's kind of fun for all the family a bit as well. So I can see it doing quite well. I think it will probably be quite successful for Netflix over this period.
Probably. I guess there's the big debate that's going on. I mean, me and Matt covered it last week on our end of year kind of roundup episode of the problem of Netflix purchasing Warner Brothers, and what does that mean for theatrical release. And the first Knives Out film, I think, did well at the theater. I don't think it wasn't a bomb at the theater. So there's been this sort of fight to put it in cinemas, and both times it's had the very, very short theatrical run. Would Knives Out serve better if it had a proper proper cinematic window, 2 months in the theater? With that, I don't know if I would go to the cinema to see another one, but is that because I'm conditioned by streamers to know that they're going to dump this thing out in a couple of weeks anyway. So why bother paying for something to see it on the platform that I'm already paying for?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, there's a few things on that. I've only recently resubscribed to Netflix after a long time off, and partly to see all the kind of new films that they're putting on there. And you do sort of think, if it's on a streamer, why would I pay to see it? I did actually go and see Wake Up Dead Man in the cinema. That was partly because I knew I was coming on this show, though, and I wanted to sort of give it a good, give it its best shot. And I probably liked it more as a result of that. Broadly speaking, I think there's some movies. I saw a movie called Train Dreams not long ago, which is kind of a very, I guess you could call it more of an art house film, more of a mood film. And I really enjoyed it. I had a really good time with it. Well, not good time. It's quite moving. It's Nick Cave is on the soundtrack. It's kind of like a Terrence Malick film. It's not something I absolutely wouldn't watch on it. it is something I wouldn't watch on Netflix. Like, I think if I was to put it on Netflix, I would find it quite boring. If I was in my own home, I would probably turn off. But because I was in the cinema, I was focused on it more. So I do think some of these movies are probably being done a disservice in so much as I think I focused on Wake Up Dead Man way more because I was watching it in the cinema. I think if I'd watched it at home, I did watch it at home the second time, just to sort of like refresh my memory. And I did find myself drifting away a couple of times just because I'm in my own home and I'm comfortable and I'm not paying attention. And there is that thing of like, is it a plot hole or was I on my phone? Because I'm not actually, maybe there were things that were explained. But so I don't think it's good for the movies. But as you say, like that does feel like where the industry is going. Like it's all about the streaming race now. So
I definitely. I mean, we have a projector, so it's sort of at home cinema, which makes it nice and feels big and feels immersive and stuff. So I can kind of replicate cinematic experience a little bit. If I was watching this on my computer, I don't know. It probably wouldn't hit as hard, but because I at least still get to see it on a semi-big screen, it helps. It does help pull you in a bit more. And I mean, we went and saw Thunderball this weekend, which is probably a really good example of that. I mean, that was the first Sean Connery Bond film I've seen on the big screen. Thunderball is by far not my favorite of the Connery films, but not the worst either. But seeing it on the big screen really emphasized the thrill of that film. Like it was great. I was immersed.
And because you're right, it's not a film that I particularly would say is my favorite Bond movie. And I've seen it loads of times. In fact, I would say I disliked it in the past because I always feel that the underwater scenes go on too long and blah, blah, blah.
And they still do.
And they still do. But I did, watching it on the big screen, I actually did like it more than I've ever liked it before. And I think it was that sense of focus, the immersion, the John Barry soundtrack suddenly is, landing even more strongly than it normally does. All the great kind of the incredible sets like Blofeld's lair and everything. Yeah, I mean, it does make a difference. Like, there's no question. But I do worry that in 10 years' time, there will be no such thing as cinemas if these kinds of deals continue as they go. Like,
it's true. I mean, I really hope it doesn't go that way because I like going to the cinema. I like seeing, this year, we went and saw Superman. We went and saw Fantastic Four. I'm glad that I saw those on the big screen. Did I love them? No. But am I glad that I saw them on? It was fun.
Their best shot. The fact that we went to see Superman on the big screen, we gave it its best shot. Like it's not like we can look back and go, maybe if we would have liked it more if we'd seen it. On the big screen, we did. So I think it's a generous thing to do to the movie because it's sort of saying, okay, like, I'm here. If I'm paying to see a movie, I want to like it. Like I'm kind of on its side. Like I really wanted to like Fantastic Four more than I did because and if I didn't want to like it, I don't go to the cinema to hate watch. I only hate watch on TV. Like I'm not going to pay money to watch something.
Exactly.
If I'm paying my ticket, I'm on the movie side. The movie has to lose me. Like I'm kind of, I'm supporting it. And there is always that funny moment in a movie. There is that funny moment where you realize, it's usually about half an hour in, where I suddenly realize whether or not I'm into it. I'm suddenly, this is connecting or this isn't connecting. And with Wake Up Dead Man, I have to say, it was connecting. I was interested. Maybe for reasons that are more to do with the fact that it's just an entertaining movie.
Yes.
But I was entertained by it.
Yeah. In Wake Up Dead Man's defense, I can't say that I was bored.
No,
I wasn't bored. Nor can I say that I was necessarily bored with the first Knives Out film. I was very frustrated and not having a good time with The Glass Onion at all. But these two on either end, they're entertaining in and I don't mean this as cruel as it's going to sound. They're entertaining in a very mindless sort of way.
Right.
I was sort of joking around with Matt about this via text. I basically said these films are like the cinematic equivalent of dangling keys in front of a baby.
Oh, right.
You know,
Okay.
it's just because it's like, you know, you're
How do you mean?
looking at the
They're so
well,
zippy.
it's you. Yeah, there's the glitz and the glam of it. You got the big stars in it. You've got the this. You've got the
Yeah.
twist. You've got the blah 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 blah. You know, it's also don't, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm being cynical and facetious with that, but it has
I
a
don't
sort
hold
of
that against it. Yeah, I sort of think, oh, that's good. You know, at least it's
yeah,
like you say, it's not boring. At least it's kind of and even though it's a fairly long film, it didn't feel that long. It felt a bit long on the second viewing, but when I first watched it, I did feel as like, oh right, we're at the end already, and you know, it's over 2 hours, so that's quite impressive.
Yeah, I felt the length the first time. I did. I was thinking, oh, can we let's speed this up a little bit. Just we could have cut some stuff, guys. Come on, just a little bit.
Yeah,
Just a little bit.
what we've cut.
You know, little trims here and there, I think along the way would have escalated it. The whole bank account scene that goes nowhere. Where's the bank account number? Don't need it. You just don't need it.
I did like you were saying that you didn't like the first scene with Sai, where he does his big kind of I'm an evil right-wing internet.
Yeah.
But I like the bit where he's talking later on, where he's talking about he's discovered that Father Wicks is his father, and he does a sort of Empire Strikes Back reference. He goes like, we could be like father and son. And Josh O'Connor says, oh, like in Star Wars. And he went, yeah, like the rebels. And I thought that was actually quite a funny way of putting across the idea that he's this clearly sort of empire guy. Sort of in his brain thinks he's a goodie. That he doesn't actually.
It's funny.
Sort of misunderstood Star Wars.
Yes, I did. I when he did the like father and son thing, I thought, on the nose joke. But then when he said like the rebels, I was like, when he said like the rebels, and then they didn't explain the joke, I thought Ryan is how you tell a fucking joke.
I quite
you let the audience be smart enough to know that he's the Empire, but he thinks he's the rebel, and that's what all of like conservative Twitter is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And obviously, I think it's obviously coming from a true place, that of Rian Johnson having had his Last Jedi experience of being attacked by some fairly conservative people who think they're on Luke Skywalker's side, but if they were in Star Wars world, would be in the evil empire. So I thought that was quite good. I think there are funny bits in it. I quite like the bit where the girl in the wheelchair, who we haven't discussed much, partly because she's not that interesting. When she gets up and she is walking towards the table, and Martha responds like it's a miracle. She's like, "Come walk, Martha. It just hurts." I thought that was quite funny, just because it's kind of that thing about disabled. It's the cliche of like someone waiting for a miracle. It's kind of like disabled people like that can sometimes walk. You know, people who are blind can see a bit. Like it's kind of I thought it was really good. So I thought it was it was entertaining. I was like I say, I was rarely bored. I think like we've picked a lot of holes in it, but on the whole, I quite like it. I think it's I wouldn't watch it again necessarily in a hurry, having watched it twice in quick succession.
You did just watch it twice in quick succession, to be fair. So that's not really going against it at this point in time. If I watched one film, if I watched Thunderball like next weekend, I would probably not watch Thunderball again for like a year,
the rest of your life.
Well, I mean, this is a debriefed episode, so we don't typically do ratings. This is just sort of like, we've just been to the cinema, we've just seen something. Let's just talk about it, and we'll save a proper proper episode, proper investigation for a later time, and dive more into the behind the scenes. But that being said, this is your first time on the show, so I do want to know what you would rate Knives Out, whatever this is, Wake Up Dead Man and Knives Out Mystery.
How do you feel, by the way? Sorry to interrupt, but the fact that it's called a Knives Out mystery, not a Benoit Blanc mystery, does that annoy you? Do you?
Yeah, it does. It will. Yeah. It's because, actually, this goes back to what we were saying at the very beginning, and that is that Benoit Blanc is not a real character, because they can't sell it as a Benoit Blanc mystery because no one knows who the fuck Benoit Blanc is. But what everyone does know is Knives Out.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they do have to do that. And it's like Benoit
which is
Blanc.
why they've done it.
And if they would say a Benoit Blanc mystery, they'd be worried that maybe some elements of the audience might think it's a French film and be like, I don't want to see that. So they probably think we need to do Knives Out. But anyway, you were asking me how I would rank it out of 5.
Yeah, well, we do, you know, everyone knows who listens, so we do 5 Falcons, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. What would you rate Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery?
I did think of this earlier. As I say, I did enjoy it, so I don't want to be mean, and I want to be generous. I think saying 3 Falcons would be a bit mean. Maybe 4 would be a bit generous. I'm going to say 4. Yeah, I'll give it 4 Falcons. That's quite high. Maybe 3.5 is more accurate, but I'll say 4.
Yeah,
I'll be
okay. Fair enough.
Just in case Rian Johnson is listening and he wants to make a movie out of one of my books, I should.
There you go. I think after the way we eviscerated the film Brick,
I think we can kiss goodbye to that.
I don't think he's ever going to want to be my friend, and you know, this isn't personal. This isn't personal.
Yeah.
Right.
So, what would you say? What would you do?
Well, I always, you know, after I watch a film, I put it on my Letterbox just because I like to keep a log of stuff, not because I take Letterbox seriously. I gave it 3 stars, so I guess I would probably give it 3 Falcons. Currently, that is the current. You know.
Okay, so you're 3, I'm 4. Yeah, I was going to say like 3.5 feels right, but yeah, I'll stick with 4.
I think look, it's the I predicted way too many things, or I got really close, or I got way too close to too many different things. The accent really drives me nuts.
I know what you mean. It feels very arch, but that Scooby-Dooby-Doo stuff kind of gets on my nerves a bit now.
Yes.
It's kind of trying to be.
Yeah, that plus, like we said, like, you know, all of the suspects were sort of non-entities. Mila Kunis as the sheriff pick, like, what a waste! What a useless character! What a useless waste of a great actor! Like Mila Kunis is great. She's also she's really fucking funny. You have a really funny good actor in your film, and you don't do anything good or funny with her. Come on.
Yeah, she's just kind of annoyed, isn't she? Kind of hands on her hips, annoyed with like what Benoit Blanc's doing.
Yeah.
She doesn't. Really
also, you got Jeffrey Wright in your movie. Like maybe that was just Jeffrey Wright doing like a cameo to be nice, but like
a Bond little cameo reunion at the end there with Felix Leiter and James Bond. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it was great that he was in it, but I imagine that was probably more of a scheduling issue. They probably thought we can only get right for 2, but I kind of wish
the John Candy thing in Home Alone.
Sorry,
the John Candy thing in Home Alone. He's in it, but he could only film for literally like 12 hours. So they did all of his scenes in 12 hours. I think he either did it like for free or he did it for like quite literally next to nothing as a favor to, I think, Chris Columbus.
Yeah. I wonder if they'd have been Jeffrey Wright and Mila Kunis had been suspects, maybe they would have had better roles. If roles had been written for them.
Cool. That would have been cool.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. They did seem a bit wasted. And I can't remember who else was in it, despite having seen it quite recently. I thought it was fine. It's not that I thought people were bad in it necessarily. It's more like I just thought the roles were underwritten. You know, like Mila Kunis. Like, there's not a lot you can do with that role, really. It's kind of the Lestrade of the piece. The guy who played that role in Knives Out was Lakeith Stanfield, who I also think is a really good actor, and he was just kind of the cop. You know, it's kind of the cop who shows up and isn't that is kind of second fiddle to Benoit Blanc. I think those roles are probably quite difficult to make interesting. But that's a shame. I just remembered one of the reasons why I kind of knew it would be Glenn Close is I was listening to a movie podcast that was predicting Oscars, and they said if anyone wins an Oscar for this movie, it's Glenn Close and Best Supporting Actress. And I remember thinking, why would she win an Oscar? I thought, it's because she's the killer. So I thought that was a bit like, it's all going to be about her at the end. So they kind of gave it away.
Yeah, that is a bit of a giveaway. She's got to be doing something to
she's
get
obviously got a good path. Yeah, so that was that.
Yeah.
I'm annoyed with them a bit, but
that makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Oh well, that was great. I really enjoyed chatting to you about it.
That was good fun, James. Where can people find you on the internet? Tell people where to find you.
Well, if you go to james-benmore.com, not only can you read or learn more about my books, Ask for Mercy, my murder mystery, The Dodger Papers, which is my trilogy of novels about the Artful Dodger, but there's a short novel called Find the Needle, a novella, which is a murder mystery, and that's free. You can download it onto your Kindle right now if you sign up to my newsletter, and that's very much in the vein of a murder mystery. So if you've been listening to me and thinking, I'd like to see how this guy does, where he's very critical about other people's murder mysteries, what's he like? You can check it out for free if you go to my website, james-benmore.com.
There you go. Go check it out. Go check it out. Well, this is the finale of Mean Streets for 2025. I'm sorry that Matt couldn't join us tonight. He sends his well wishes to everyone, and helps everyone has a wonderful holiday period. I hope you do too. We will be back at the beginning of January with some brand new spanking episodes that I think are going to be a lot of fun. So in the meantime, catch up on our back catalog if you're just tuning in. But yeah, we'll be back in the new year. So in the meantime, take care walking down those mean streets.